Today we are making this plush daisy pillow. I crocheted this with a waistcoat stitch. I'm using Bernat blanket. For the petals, I'm using Misty Green, size 6. And then for the center, I chose tan pink. For this, you're gonna need 2 of the main color. So whatever your petals are gonna be, you need 2 skeins of that, 1 skein for your center circle. These just were really cute together, and I thought they would be really fun in a little girl's room. But I made it for my little girl who's like 23, but still, she loves it. You're gonna need an 8mm hook. I chose this larger hook because we are using the waistcoat stitch, and a little bit larger hook helps you make that stitch easier. Then we have my little pair of scissors. I have a large yarn needle, and of course you're gonna need your stitch markers. And we're gonna get started with a slip stitch. And I'm gonna insert my hook. I'm not gonna go super tight. Then we're gonna chain 2. In this first chain stitch, you're gonna need 6 single crochets. So now I have my 6 single crochets. So this is where it gets a little interesting. I don't know if you're familiar with a waistcoat stitch, but it is the single crochet stitch that looks knit when you're finished with it. Let me go off camera for a second, and I'm gonna make this circle in yarn where it's easier to see what we're doing, because this is so fluffy you can't really tell what I'm about to do. Okay, so here I am with a little lighter weight yarn, and I'm gonna try to show you how I do this waistcoat stitch in a round. So it's a little different when you're doing it in a round versus in rows. So in this first single crochet, you see that little V right here? There's a little V in every one of these single crochets all the way around in this circle. So the thing that you want to do is to go through that V, and then on the back side, you want to make sure that you go through the upside down V so that you're going straight through the center of that stitch. You yarn over, you bring up a loop, just like a regular single crochet. The thing that you need to do with a waistcoat stitch is to give yourself some room in this loop right here when you're going to come back around and go into it again. So this is the section where your hook is going to go again when you come back around. And what you want to do is bring that loop up at least even to this other loop on the hook. That way you get more space to stick your hook in there. Then you yarn over and you come through. See how that works? And we're gonna go again. Here's my V. It's kind of hard to see on the first row. So even if you just decide to do a regular single crochet around that, that's fine. And then you can go to the waistcoat stitch after. But here I am again. I went through the upside down V and the V on the front, pulled it up even to this other one so I have room, and then come through again. And here I go again. Come up and pull through. Now I'm not doing this, I'm just showing you how the waistcoat stitch works in a round. We're gonna increase in each one of these single crochets for our pillow, but I just wanted to give you an example of how that looks. And you can see right here that it's starting to look knit. So now we're back with our 6 crochets in our round. For this second round, we're gonna double waistcoat stitch in each single crochet around. So I'm gonna go right here. I'm gonna go through to the back, pull it up, make sure it's even, come through. I'm gonna go in the same space, pull up a loop, pull it even, come through. Because this stuff is so fluffy and it's really hard to tell where you started, it's really important to mark your first stitch. Now we're going to do 2 single crochets in each around. Pull up a loop. That's 2 in that one. When we finish this, we'll end up with 12 waistcoat stitches. I've come around and I've done 2 waistcoat stitches in each single crochet around. So I have 12 stitches total in this round. For the third round, we're going to start the same way. We're going to do 2 waistcoat stitches in this first stitch. Then we're going to go and put 1 waistcoat stitch in the next one. And then we're going to repeat that all the way around. So I'm going to have 2 stitches, 1 waistcoat stitch, 2 waistcoat stitches, 1 waistcoat stitch. And we'll do that all the way around. So let's do our 2. Make sure you are giving yourself extra space so you can come through that spot that you need to come through. Okay, there's my 2 in my first waistcoat stitch. Here's my second, so I'm just going to put 1, bring it up. Now at the next one, I'm going to go with 2, and then we'll do 1. Then repeat that all the way around. This is round 3. Every row or every round that we increase, we're going to increase by 6 stitches. So the first one was 6, second one is 12, the third one is 18. So we're going to continue and we're going to do a similar pattern to the last one. So we're going to increase in the first one again. Then we're going to do a single waistcoat stitch in the next one, a single waistcoat stitch in the next one, and then we're going to increase again so that we can make a nice even round that's going to kind of dome. You can see how it's starting to dome a little bit, and that will give our pillow some puff. I'm going to start right here in my first stitch. I'm going to do 2 waistcoat stitches. I'm going to make sure to mark my first stitch. And I'm going to go to the next waistcoat stitch and do a single. Go to the next waistcoat stitch and do another single. And that is our pattern. So 2, and then a single, and a single. And then we'll repeat that around. So now we have 24 stitches all the way around. Similarly, we're going to start with 2 waistcoat stitches in the first stitch. Okay, there's our 2 waistcoat stitches. We'll do a single in the next one, a single in the next one, and a single again. Now you can see that the reason that I chose this stitch is because it makes a tighter, just a tighter fabric. Because I've noticed that when you use just regular single crochets, you get a lot of little holes. Like there's a little bit of one here, even in the center, but you kind of get those all over the place if you use just regular single crochet. So I found that if I do a waistcoat stitch in this, I do a little better. Whoops, I forgot to mark my first stitch. So I did 1, 2, 3, and then here is my first stitch right here. Okay, our pattern is 2, and then 3 singles, and then we'll go 2 again and 3 singles all the way around. All right, so that was round 5. Again, this was our second to last round, so now we're going to work on our final round. And it's just a single waistcoat stitch in each stitch all the way around. So we're going to end with 30 stitches. Here I am at my last stitch, and I'm going to go ahead and make that one. For finishing, I'm going to slip stitch into this first stitch, You're gonna make 2 of these. So for one of them, you should try to make your end, your tail, probably about 1.5 circumferences of your circle. This will come in handy when you are sewing it together. So then I'm just gonna go ahead and pull that one. I'm actually gonna do another little slip stitch, a chain stitch actually, and then I'm just gonna finish it off and pull that all the way through. Go ahead and make another one of these, and then when you have your 2, you can see how this is gonna make a really cute puffy center for your pillow. Next, I'm just gonna show you how to make the petals. And once we have all of our pieces, then I'll show you how to construct it. Okay, so now that we have our circles done, I'm going to show you how to start the petals. Essentially, we're going from top of the petal, so the top of the petal to the bottom. I'm not going to have too long of a tail. You don't really have to worry too much about that. To start, we're going to chain 6. And then I'm going to go ahead and come in and do single crochet, row, second chain from the hook. So I'm just going to do a regular single crochet, but I am going to do like I did before and bring this up higher so that I have enough room to get in to start the waistcoat stitch. So we're going to have 5 single crochets for this first row. So now I'm going to chain 1 and turn. This is a little bit different because when we're doing the round, we're just going the right side only for the entire time that we're crocheting. But for this one, we're actually going to turn, and so it makes our situation a little different because we're going through the back rather than the front. Right here, this is not the best example of the stitch because it's a little wonky. It's that first stitch, but here you can see really clearly where you have to go through. So you have a V, an upside down V, and then you have a little top. So I try to go through that. So this is just to show you how the waistcoat stitch works. This is not part of the pattern, okay? So what I would do to make the waistcoat stitch in this row is to come through that little spot right there. So you have your upside down V in the top. I'm gonna go through there. Then on the front, you have your V that we were used to going through when we were doing the round. You're gonna make sure that you go through that as well. So here's the back. I'm gonna come through the front, pull it up like I normally do, really tall, and then come through, okay? Now when we're doing this first stitch, I just tend to go through here and go through the V. In this first one, we're gonna make 2 waistcoat stitches. So we're gonna do an increase. So I have 1, 2, and then I'm gonna do a single all the way across. Make sure I'm going through the bottom V and the right side up V. So I have an increase here for the last one. I'm going to do another increase. Same thing as the first one. Just go through that V shape in the front. Okay. And there we go. So there is the start of the top of our petal. What we're going to do is we're going to continue with this increase on each end and then a single in each until we get to 11 waistcoat stitches. So that's going to be 5, 7, 9, 11. So it's going to be 4 rows. Okay, so then I'll see you back here in just a minute. So now you have your 4 rows of increases. You can see the top of the petal start take shape. The next 3 rows, you're going to do a single in each across. So you're going to have 3 rows of 11 waistcoat stitches. We have our 3 rows of 11, and you can see how the petal is forming right here, and this will be the widest part of the petal. And then this edge is a little ragged, but we're going to clean that up at the end, so don't worry about that. And now we're going to start a decrease row. So the decrease rows are similar to these increase rows, except we're just doing the opposite. We're going to take it down 2 stitches every other row. So we're going to have a row of decrease on each side, and then we're going to have a row of singles. So I'll just show you what I mean. I'm going in to this first stitch like I would be making a single, draw up my loop. I'm not going to go through these 2 loops on the hook. I'm going to go to the second stitch. I'm going to go in as though I was making a single, and now I'm going to draw through all 3 of these loops on the hook. And now I've joined together these 2 stitches, and that's going to start to give us our taper as we go down the petal. For the rest of these in the center, I'm going to do a single in each until I get to the last 2. Okay, so now I've gotten to the last 2, and I'm going to do the same thing I did at the beginning of the row. I'm going to draw up a loop. I'm not going to go through these 2 loops. I'm going to go into the last stitch. And don't worry too much about making sure you're in the exact right spot for this last stitch. It gets a little murky and muddy, and this stuff is so fluffy that even if you make a mistake here and there, you're just not going to notice it. All right, so I drew up my loop in the last stitch, and I'm going to draw through all 3 on the hook. Okay, so that is a decrease row. For the next row, I'm just going to chain, I'm going to turn, and then I'm going to do a single in each of these across. Now for this first stitch, like I said, see how that, I mean, it's a little bit like you just can't really see where you should go in here. Just stick it in there and then just make sure that I'm in the center of this part. So you see this upside down V right here? I just try to make sure that I make my hook go through that. And then it makes a little bit neater stitch on the other side. Then I'm just gonna do singles all the way across. Okay, I'm at this next one, and it's the same thing. Like I said, just make sure that you get it into a good spot where it's a sturdy spot in the stitch, and just make your waistcoat stitch from there. So now we have our decrease row and then a single row, and that's going to be our pattern until we get down to 3 stitches total. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're back down to 9. The next one will be 7. Then we'll do a single row of 7. And then the next will be 5 with a decrease row. And then we'll do a single row of 5. And then the next row will be 3. And then we'll do the last row, which is a single row of 3. And then I'll show you what to do from there. You can see the shape of the petal. And like I said before, it's rough edges, so we're gonna fix that in a minute here. But this is my last decrease row. I'm gonna do my last row of singles. So we're gonna have 3 stitches. There are my 3 single waistcoat stitches. So now this is essentially our petal. I'm gonna go around and single crochet around so that we get a nice edge that we can whip stitch together with the other side of the petal. You can see how this also has a nice little dome shape, and it's going to make it nice and fluffy. See that? I just love how fluffy this pillow is. And it's so cute. And then when they lay their head right there, this kind of cradles the head. I just love it. Okay. How we're going to do our finishing for the petal is we're going to do an even single crochet all the way around. And what I take to mean even, people do it their own way, but for me there are 15 rows, so I'm going to end up with 15 stitches until I get to the top, and then I'll single crochet across the top, and then I'll do another 15 stitches when I get to the end. So I'll show you what I mean. I do not do a chain for this. I just go straight in and do my single. This little guy right here seems to have been working well for me to go into for that second stitch. So I've got 2 stitches. I'm just going to do a single crochet for each row. I've finished this first side of the petal. You can see how nice and clean those even single crochets make the edge. Then I'm going to do 5 across the top and roughly 15 around again. And you know, your even stitching around may be different than mine. You might have more, you might have fewer. Try to be consistent with every petal so that they sew up together nicely. So I've made my way all the way back around to my beginning stitch. For this, I'm going to do, for my tail, I'm going to do something similar. It's going to be about maybe 1.5 around. That's probably about what I would do. So then you can use this tail to help you with your sewing when you're going to put your pieces together. You're going to want to make 14 of these. There are 7 petals total on this pillow. For half of them, so for 7 of them, you're going to want a really long tail like this. And then for the other half, you don't need to make a tail that long. I'm going to get all the rest of these done, and then I'm going to show you how to sew your pieces together. We're going to stuff it, and then we're just going to finish it up. I have completed all of my pieces, and now we are ready to sew them together. Here are my 2 circle pieces. And you remember we put this long tail on one of the pieces. I'm just going to thread that through here, my yarn needle. I do pick a really large one. You can see how big that eye is right there. And that really helps with threading it quickly. This is the right side. And you put wrong sides together. And you can tell by the little tail that's inside. Wrong sides together. Then I like to just line them up where this is about 4 stitches. So that's about 4 inches apart where this tail is. And then this will be my opening where I'm going to stuff the center. Okay, so whip stitch. You just come through the top right here. You can see those 2 little bars right there. And then I come through where I just finished. Pull it through. I'm going to do the same here. Then you just make sure that you're matching up your stitches as you go around so you have a nice even stitch and you don't get any weird wrinkles anywhere. So I think you get the idea. Now you can see that we have left ourselves a little opening, and we're going to stuff that with the fiber fill. And then also you can see, I'm going to show you the seam. It's a nice little seam, very pretty and neat all the way around. And that will make it easier for us to join the petals because you can see exactly where that seam is. Here we have each side of the petal. And remember that I told you that you always wanted to have a long tail on one of them and not so long on the other. And this is going to be similar, of course, to how we did the center circle. We're just going to whip stitch around, and then I'll show you how we want to finish this up. Okay, so I have my wrong side here. You can tell I got my tail right there. So you want to go wrong sides together. Here's my other wrong side. And I like to get my corners together and even it up, line it up really nicely. Now remember how I said that you were going to stitch evenly around? You may end up having a stitch or two difference between your two petal pieces, but that's not really a big deal. Just make sure that you're evenly whip stitching around. It'll all work out, I promise. All right, so I'm going to come through this corner and I'm going to come across. Oops. Now I'm ready. Let's go through this corner and then this corner. And then the same thing, we're going to go through the top of this stitch and the top of this stitch. And we're just going to keep whip stitching all of the way around. Here we have our little petal. Here's our first one, and you can see how this is going to start to take shape. We're back, and I have all of the petals and then one center. Now we're ready to stuff them. I like to make it a little bit firm. I'll show you. The center is kind of more firm than the outsides, so I kind of overstuffed the center a little more than the petals for this one. But you can, like I said, you can do it however you want. If you like it a little less firm, you put less filling. If you like it a little more firm, you put more filling. So let's go ahead and begin stuffing our center circle. What I do is I usually try to stuff toward the seam so that it doesn't get uneven. I just take little handfuls at a time. We're getting there, but I'm not quite to the firmness that I like. Much better. You can tuck this other tail inside. I whip stitched my opening closed, and in order to weave them in, I kind of try to follow along with the stitches as I go down the center, and that makes a really nice invisible weave. See how you can see that? So I've gone down through the center, and then right here I'm just gonna trim it and let that sit inside. Look at that. Now let's do a petal. And I'm still doing the same thing where I'm stuffing it toward the seams. That way you make sure that you keep your shape of your petal. And I like to kind of make it fluffier at the end. And then just leave this alone. You don't need to do anything with this. We're going to seal this seam and we're going to connect it at the same time to our center circle. You can see also how this is turning out to be sort of a knit look. It's a little different in my opinion. It doesn't exactly look knit, but it's definitely a more woven look than the typical single crochet. Now we have our prepared circle, center circle, and I have done all of the petals. I've stuffed them. Now I mentioned before that you didn't have to close these if you don't have to if you don't want to, because I just prefer to save a little time by sealing them and then connecting them to the center circle at the same time. But if it is easier for you and you just like to have two seams to sew together, because this can get a little cumbersome, then just go ahead and do that. I'm going to go through these two first. Then I'm going to go through roughly 5 of the stitches on my circle seam. You see how it's a little cumbersome? But this is the last part, so there's nothing to worry about. We're almost done. Oh, and see how I kind of missed? I missed a stitch right back here. So those are the things you just have to watch out for if you don't sew them up beforehand, because then you won't save yourself any time and you got to go back and fix it anyway. So just make sure you're going through these 2 loops. And it's the same whip stitch that we used for the other pieces. So I got to my end. I'm in my stitch number 5. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. I'm going to take my needle out because this tail is going to be useful for when we do this part. So these petals need to be connected to each other about 2/3 up. And having this long tail that we've used from the start is very helpful when you don't have to keep cutting and sewing and cutting and sewing over and over again. So take your needle out, leave this to connect these 2, and then take your long tail again from your next petal. Thread your needle. Sorry, try to get in the frame. I'm trying to get it. Like I said, it's just a little finicky. And you have to deal with that as best you can, since this is the last part of constructing the pillow. There's the last one. See? Look at that. Look at how cute that is coming together. So I'm going to take my needle out. I might as well, while I'm here, show you how I did the seam for the petals, in between the petals. It's the same thing as connecting to your center circle. You want it to connect right about there where it's going to start tapering back to the top. Just start in my first stitches where they join together. And now I'm going to join the seams. It's harder to do this for the camera than it is when I'm just sitting there on my couch in front of the TV. But I'm doing the exact same thing where I'm going seam to seam. I've gotten to the spot where I want to stop. I'm going to go in again. And I'm going to strengthen that just a little bit, because if you're not careful and you don't weave in your ends as well as you should, this can really unravel on you, and you don't want to do that after all of your hard work. So just make sure that you're really making that secure. And I'm just going to do the same thing where I went in and followed the stitches. And I'm going to trim that. And there we have it. There's one of your seams. And then you just do the same thing all the way around. So start with your long tail, attach it to your circle, use your old other tail and attach your petals to each other. Do that all the way around for all 7. And then we'll come back and we'll celebrate our constructed daisy pillow. We are done. Look at how sweet and cute and happy that is. I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you've created this, I would love to see your color combinations, variations. Again, I have this pattern up for sale. I'll have that linked in the description, and I'll have some more patterns out shortly. Take care.